This conference will now be recorded.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ryan Knotts. I am the district lead co-chair, and I am here with my my good buddy, partner in crime, District Governor-elect John Reyes.
Good evening. Welcome aboard. Glad to have you.
And tonight, this will be our last President-elect training seminar session 2. So this is the second year in a row that we have done this via webinar. But we have a lot of information to cover. We have a short amount of time, and we want to make sure it's as efficient as possible. So trust me when I say, as far as I'll be sending out some materials after the fact. So you'll get a copy of all that we go over, in addition to several of the handouts that I will reference. So we'll make sure that you have some of the tools to succeed as you're preparing. So our goal is really to get you thinking about items you can be working on to prepare for your year as club president. We hope that tonight and throughout this process that you can channel these thoughts into achievable goals and tasks over the next 4+ months. With a finite amount of time, a lot of the questions that we're going to raise tonight are going to be rhetorical. In other words, think about them. Think about how you would handle those situations. Some of the questions, we're going to look for feedback, and we believe that you will learn from one another and value from that experience. So the questions that we are going to ask open-ended for group participation, as you'll see in future slides, will be in bold. All right, so first, before we kind of dive into the heart of PETS 2, we want to spend a little bit of time revisiting PETS 1. Most of you attended that experience in November at the Akron Rotary Camp, but we at least want to revisit that because it should be interconnected from PETS 1, PETS 2, All Ohio PETS, District Leadership Assembly. This should be a part of your progress as you prepare for your year as club president. So a lot of you also should have received an email from John Reyes not too long ago with a summary of PETS 1. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to replicate the energy of that tonight, but we feel it's important to at least cover some of that. So part of that was the Rotary Experience. And some of you are very clear as far as on what your Rotary Experience is. In other words, what defines Rotary for you? But I think these are some pretty simple questions that can help simplify that as far as why did you join Rotary? What keeps you in Rotary? What is your defining moment? And that's going to be uniquely different for everyone that you come across as a part of the Rotary family. The assumption is that over time your Rotary experience will evolve and change and other things will become more important. But we feel it's very important for you to be able to define your Rotary experience so that you can communicate this to others. And that will aid you in defining the Rotary experience and recruiting potential members. Also, when you do this at the club level, you can help define your club and what makes it unique. In other words, why is the Rotary Club of Hillcrest Sunrise different from the Rotary Club of Akron or the Rotary Club of Nordonia Hills? What makes them unique? So we did this during PETS 1, and I know not everyone participated in it. But has anybody repeated the discussion? So in other words, they've either asked it in a one-on-one discussion with a peer, they've done it at a club meeting or club committee or some other experience, but similar to how we role model this throughout the group, they've gone through that exercise. And this is a great example where a bolded question, we are looking for audience feedback.
And right now there's a great lack of that.
Well, let me give you a little feedback on that. I had a one-on-one discussion. This is Roger Sidoti from Kent Club. I came out of PETS 1 with a somewhat of a concept in my head about what some of the goals might be next year in our club. And that was kind of defining who we are again, because, you know, every 4 or 5 years we say we should reinvent ourselves. And in some ways, I think our clubs need to take a look at themselves. So I came and I ran that by our current program chair this year, Randy Smith, who's going to be the president in 2 years after I'm the president, which will be our 100th anniversary. And part of that conversation was, Randy, what is it? What do you think makes up who we are as Rotarians, and why is it important to you? And we had a lengthy post-lunch conversation about that, and I began to glean some thoughts about how we might address that with the whole club, because I think that, you know, when we talk about service above self, a lot of people who are in Rotary, they are serving outside of Rotary in so many ways, and they're also serving within Rotary in so many ways. So how can we get them to see themselves as really being like-minded people? So I took that from Pets One and just tried it, and that was my feedback I got.
Thank you so much, Roger. Others?
Hey, Ryan, this is Jacob Jackson with Hudson Clock Tower. How are you?
Good, Jacob.
I just wanted to share, we did actually have that specific discussion about what was your defining moment, and I shared several of the ones that we had discussed at our table that I happened to be sitting at, simply because I thought they were just great examples of, you know, for some of these people, why did you join? And there were neat things that other clubs had done that we could then possibly apply to our own club, such as one in particular that stands out. One of the gentlemen said he joined because he had the opportunity to come to a lunchtime club while he was a student, and they would bring in students that were part of like the Dean's Club or something along those lines, honor society or whatever the case may have been, and brought them in for that special lunch, so they got to see and learn about Rotary, and it was just a neat opportunity for them to get involved at a young age. And I thought that was something unique that we could then adapt and utilize. So anyhow, we had a long discussion at one of our club meetings following Pets One, just talking about that and then talking about what caused each of us to join. So it was interesting feedback to hear, and a lot of great information out of that.
Thank you, Jacob. I think, again, the importance is how do you communicate that? And if you haven't defined it for yourself or for your club, it's hard to do that. But I know as far as our club, we have probably about 26, 27 members. We were actually able to do this experience at a club meeting and everyone share and hear from one another, which I think is a great experience just to learn about the differences and the similarities. If you have a larger club that's 100 or more, probably not necessarily feasible unless you break that up over several meetings. Or if you break it down into smaller groups, still there's a tangible benefit of doing it like by table or by a smaller group size than it is for the entire club. And again, something that you can do at least to help people think about it if they've never even considered it, and two, help define it for themselves so when they're out there spreading awareness of Rotary and the good things that we do, how we can basically help as far as recruit and attract people. So that was part of Pets One. Another part of Pets Two was goal setting. So we spent a lot of time talking about the goals that you are going to set, and hopefully that's in conjunction with other club leaders, club members. But a large responsibility of the club president is to work with your teams to identify and set measurable and attainable goals for your club year. So we talked about this at Pets One. The goal is to have a lot of those goals entered into Rotary Club Central by June 1. This will help you track your progress, but also help people who come along behind you say as far as, okay, what did the club president do before me or 2 years before me? Did they achieve those goals? It helps them, basically measure that. So we'd like to hear, and I think your peers would like to hear, what are some of the goals that you have set, or at least you're contemplating right now? And why we love audience participation, it doesn't have to be the same person every time. So we'd like to hear from other people, but if you've got a really good goal, what is that?
Ryan, this is Jacob Jackson again. I just thought I'd share. We have most of our goals entered into the system already. And one of the things in particular, we have, a marketing committee, we have a membership committee. So we've just taken the feedback from those committees as to, how fast do we want to grow? What do we want the year to look like for next year? So membership, we have a 10% growth rate that we would like to maintain. And we are a small club, so that makes us about 2 or 3 individuals that we need to add. So that's what we set our goal as. But again, taking goals as, keeping it reasonable, be smart, if you will, so that, it's achievable, et cetera. That's kind of the route we've taken. But, also looking at some of the youth options that are out there. So one of our schools in Hudson started an Interact Club recently. We're now looking at the possibility of a Rotaract to then have some of those individuals flow into. So,
out of curiosity, how many have set a membership goal? Other than Jacob.
This is Eric in Ravenna. Our goal isn't necessarily to grow the membership, it's to renew some memberships with some existing members. We've got a ton of people that are paying dues, but they're never showing up at meetings and not contributing. So we're looking at bringing at least 6 more people back in under when I become president and getting them active again.
Eric, how many members do you have right now?
I think around 50. I mean, that's a guess, but we have about 14 that show up consistently when we meet.
Okay, so that's an excellent idea. As far as retention is just as valuable, and you see businesses talk about that all the time. It's a lot harder to keep someone than it is to get someone through the door, but that's a great goal to set as far as to just re-engaging people, and hopefully you have some specific ways of going about that. What are some other goals that people have as far as, maybe it's firm or maybe you're still contemplating, but something that you want to do during 2019, 2020?
Well, this is Roger Sidoti from Kent again. Our club's got about 110 to 120 people in the club. And what's interesting is the lack of public awareness in the city of Kent and the surrounding communities about our club. We quietly go about what we're doing. Rotarians in our district know who we are and they know the number of things we're doing. But it's kind of fascinating how the community, when you ask a random community member, well, what do you think Rotary is all about? Or what do you think Rotary does? Or, just the whole public awareness piece. And we've started doing a little bit of that this year with a little bit more utilizing the newspaper, trying to post things that the general public could see. But one of our goals for next year is to really step that up, to really increase our public image, because the feeling is that would help us in more recruiting. I don't know about the demographics of the other club, but our demographics are skewed to, let's say, people my age or older, and we're losing them. And we've lost a number of them. So we're really focusing in on trying to bring in younger people so that they can continue the legacy of the Kent Club. And part of that is that public image out there and people being aware. So that's one of the goals that is in its, I would guess, formulation stage that we've talked about quite a bit.
Okay. It's interesting, Roger, when you say as far as bringing new people in. When I've done the what is your Rotary experience, why did you join, I would usually find 4 themes as far as why people join. 1, there might be a family connection, in other words, some type of legacy. 2, some people might reach out to Rotary through a networking opportunity, an opportunity to get involved and get connected. 3, some people sought it out. In other words, they found Rotary as far as by their own volition and are connecting with it that way. 4th, and at least this is overwhelming in my experience, this can be different, someone asked them. In other words, They said, hey, have you ever thought about Rotary? Have you ever thought about getting involved? And that was an overwhelming response that I've heard as far as just why people join.
Well, I think that you're on the mark there. I think that wouldn't it be wonderful in a perfect world if every Rotarian made it their goal next year to recruit one person into Rotary that meets the four-way test in their mind, are people that have, for lack of a better term, the right Rotary stuff. Just think about what would happen to your club if everyone made that commitment.
Mm-hmm. So as we're talking about goals, how many clubs have a strategic plan? If you have one, just say, you know, Geneva or what, just name your club if your club has a strategic plan.
Chesterland.
Okay, Chesterland. Anybody else, or is it just?
We do have a strategic plan as well in Hudson Clock Tower.
Okay, thanks, Hudson. So 2 clubs out of 15, at least that we have tonight. There is a piece out there that Rotary International has developed, and I will send this out as an attachment after the webinar. But as far as they have a strategic planning guide. So I know that some clubs do this internally. I know that some clubs bring in an external partner to help get you through this. I know some clubs don't do it at all, and that's okay. But as far as if you're looking for consistency, you know, as far as think about your year as you're preparing to become club president, and some clubs have a few people already in line behind that person. Some of you might have just become president-elect here in the last month. But if you are developing consistency, a strategic plan can help make sure that you're not doing something different every single year, but you have some consistency of things that you can do. And so, like I said, RI has a piece. I will email this out as an attachment post-webinar, but it at least helps you give some thought to as far as how you are setting club goals. It gives you some tools that are out there, and this is just one handout, but it also references other handouts that can benefit you. So I at least wanted to highlight this as one of the things that can help you as you're preparing. And, you know, like I said, we have a finite amount of time tonight. You have a finite amount of time as a club president, in all honesty. That year will fly by. Some of the things you might just be putting the wheels into motion for after you, and that can be a great thing to help your club grow also.
One quick point that I'd like to make that would help me, Ryan will likely note, if he hasn't already, that Rotary International would like your club goals in by June 1. Do me a favor, I don't really care how many goals you put in. I'd really like to see one for membership. But they beat me up if these goals don't show up. I've already gotten one email, even now in February, because club goals are not in. So I would really appreciate it, and then I won't have to bother you either.
So beyond, you know, as far as the Rotary experience and your club goals, another part of things that you need to be accomplishing, and some of you may already be done, some of you are probably still working on this, is developing your club leadership team. In other words, who you're going to work with throughout the next year. And part of that also might be some strategic planning and developing future club leaders for future roles. Think about who's going to come along after you as club president. Generally, the assumption is there should be a good combination of experienced Rotarians and members who have the capacity to bring fresh ideas and further develop their leadership skills. So we also recognize that as you're developing your club leadership team, there might be some roadblocks that you might encounter with certain individuals. And we heard from Jenny Stotts at PETS 1 talk about her experience with the Rotary Club of Athens, Ohio. But as far as we know that, you know, just due to club dynamics or personality dynamics, this is a part of it. It's not necessarily good or bad, but it might impact some of the things that you're looking to do. And then also it's important to have that feedback from others also, so that it's just not one person leading in one direction and the club going in the opposite direction. So hopefully some of you have started that planning process. Hopefully it sounds like some of you have already had that discussion with some leaders, maybe not all. Hopefully your planning sessions as far as to help get everybody on the same page and figure out what those priorities are. But we're kind of also curious tonight if you've encountered any roadblocks with individual leaders, and maybe it's someone that's been in a position a long time and that position or that person needs to change, but we're kind of curious for feedback from you. Alexander, since you're texting me, I'm going to call you out.
We have our team in place.
Yeah, have you encountered any roadblocks?
Not especially, other than, you know, the shortage of people who haven't served in a while and are willing to continue serving, but we have a team, so it's good.
Okay.
And I think we
Any
have a good
roadblocks
plan
from
in
anybody
place.
else?
I'm sorry, I missed that last comment.
We have a good plan in place so that we're not rotating our whole board out and that we're cycling people through and keeping that institutional memory present.
Good.
So in other words, when people serve, the ask is that they serve for a few years and you're overlapping those time commitments.
Correct, so that people's service is staggered rather than whole boards turning over every year.
Okay, and that could be a club secretary or a club membership chair. As far as, you know, again, having some mature leaders and some newer leaders. On a technical aspect, as you add club leaders to Club Runner, if your club is a part of that, or the district website, that should filter up to Rotary International. In other words, those leaders will basically sync. So as far as I know, a few clubs that do not sync with RI are Lodi, Wadsworth, West Shore, Wickliffe, and Willowick Eastlake. I'm not quite sure if anybody's on tonight, but if you're having any difficulty, reach out to us, either John or myself, or there are other great leaders within the district that can help with that transition.
Actually, the best person to reach out to on the synchronization issue is Cheryl Warren. She happens to be in Arizona at spring training right now. We'll be back actually within the next day or two. But I know she's worked with some of you on this, and she is a whiz at it.
So after PETS 1, we talked about club experience, your goals, your leadership team, and then the fourth piece of that puzzle was change management. So we had a very phenomenal, we have a very energized speaker, Jenny Stotts, and she talked a lot about how as far as their club basically took it down to the foundation and rebuilt it from scratch and are basically flourishing. That's not going to be every club. We know that. But as far as there are benefits out there, as far as some of the things that you can do that can help with that. So one of the things that we have, and at least we're curious about, is are you planning on making any changes, either minor or large? You could say, we're no longer going to be a singing club this year. That's not as important to us. And you know, I'll let you determine whether that's minor or big. Some people might feel it differently. Or maybe your club says, we're no longer going to do a hot meal. We're going to do a cold meal to save money. But maybe there's changes as far as that are more drastic. We want to hear from you, and then I believe, again, your peers want to hear from you. What are some of the changes that you're contemplating?
Alexandra here again. I think it's more sort of a longer term gradual plan that we want to sort of coalesce what it is we do in our service area so that we become a club that people are finding us. And so that's something that, you know, it can't be done in 1 year. And I believe that we do have buy-in from the succession plan. But just sort of repositioning ourselves to be maybe a little more visible and a little more unified in what it is that we do and what's our core area of service.
Okay. Great. What else? Who else has identified some changes?
This is Jacob Jackson again with the Hudson Clock Tower. I would just share that we have a few changes that we're looking at implementing, mainly in sorts of areas that we focus. There were a lot of things that just in my process of goal setting that many of us did not know even existed, like some of the Rotary action groups. I had no idea what a Rotary action group was, and I've only been a member for about a year and a half, so it was new to me, but it was new to a lot of our older members as well. So we're looking at getting some people involved in areas like that, and other things that have popped up just even through that goal setting that I have learned about. So
I see there's a note here in the chat room, I think it may be from Geneva, that you're working through issues with attendance of club officers. Is that something that you can share with us, what's going on there and how you're dealing with that?
Alex, any feedback?
Oh, Alex is multitasking right now. So let's go ahead, Ryan. Yeah, we can move on.
All right. As you consider changes, I think it's vital, though, as you consider those, you've been trusted with the direction of your club, but it's vital to listen to others. And sometimes that means, as far as listening to someone who might present the devil's advocate, a contrarian viewpoint. It shouldn't be all groupthink, but it's vital that you get feedback from others within your club as you weigh those changes. If you're not sure, as far as there's a lot of great district resources, you could certainly have your AG, your assistant governor help out. There's other teams like the DG line, as far as that can help, talk you through those. I know during my year as club president, I looked at some of my peer presidents for guidance, and then also my district governor were immensely helpful in my development and just providing a sounding board. So that really, as far as a quick breakdown of PETS 1, we're going to turn our attention to PETS 2, and really tonight we're going to talk a lot about meeting management. When you think about it, generally our members are going to participate to various degrees in either a club meeting, a club service project, or club fellowship. And obviously we have those members, as mentioned earlier, they may be rhinos, they may be Rotarian in name only, or there might be members that you see at a lot. I commonly hear the refrain that 20% of club members do 80% of the work. It's the same people. But the meeting is a vital piece, and whether you meet weekly or if you meet every other week, it's really one of those defining parts of the Rotary experience. And you as club president, if you're leading that meeting, you're going to play a large role in how successful your club meetings are during your year. As you think about this, how do you know it's a good meeting or a bad meeting? And sometimes you'll get feedback directly from your members. Sometimes it'll be a feeling, but how do you know as far as how successful? Do people show up and they're enthused to be there? Or it's like, I'm just here for the meal and then I'm out. But as far as how are you assessing that? And my challenge to you is to think about, how does that club experience look for someone who's been a member for 1 year or 10 years, or someone that you'd like to recruit to join Rotary? Maybe they're a prospective member, maybe they're that week's speaker, but how does that meeting experience differ? How do you assess this? The Rotary Club Health Check, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, but that's another way as far as finding out and assessing as far as how members feel, along with the member satisfaction survey. So these are a couple of tools out there. I'm going to point out the member satisfaction survey, because we'll get more into the Rotary Club Health Check. But this is just one tool that RA provides, and this is, again, another handout I will be sending out but at least gives you some feedback to assess as far as what your members think about the meetings. And I know we've gotten a little bit in the chat already. Speakers make a huge role as far as in defining that club experience, as far as, or do you have great speakers or are they just kind of So, but the member assessment, I'm scrolling a little bit quickly. I know it's not always as easy when you follow along at my webinar, but this gives you a survey that you could adapt or you can incorporate on your own. You can use a something tool like a SurveyMonkey, or you can use it basically a paper handout. Maybe some of your members are not at the point where they're as technically savvy, and we certainly recognize that. But this is an example of something that you can at least do to assess the club meeting experience along with other aspects of their Rotary experience. It can at least give you some feedback that might drive some of your decisions. Our point more than anything is to make sure that you're gathering feedback as you make those decisions. It shouldn't just be, I think we should do this, but are you involving others throughout that process? And again, we'll talk a little bit more about the Rotary Club Health Check here shortly. So one of the questions that we do have beyond assessing your club experience and speakers, but what are you going to do during your year to make those club meetings attractive to current and prospective members? What are some of those ideas that you have? Tell us. Tell your peers, because they might want to steal and copy those ideas if they can.
Can you guys hear me okay? Can you guys hear me okay? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. This is Peter from the North Ridgeville Club. And we've really enjoyed the Rotary on the Road. That's really been well-attended meetings, which could, I guess, make more community awareness. I heard one other member talk about, community awareness and, just being out at Louisville Community College and some of the other community events in large groups really help.
Just for those who don't know, what is the Rotary on the Road experience?
Once every 5 weeks, we will go to a local business or the community college or the joint vocational school, and we will invite as many people as possible, friends, family, and it's well attended. So it's a good marketing piece for not only our club, but the community outreach aspect. Makes everyone aware that we're here, we're Rotary, we're proud, and when you gather 20 to 40 people in a room, there's just a very positive vibe, and everybody just gets attracted to that energy. So that's really been our current president's really done a fantastic job in making that happen. So hoping to continue that in my year.
And when you do that once every 5 weeks, are you visiting a Rotarian's business or work, or are you doing a community place, or some combination thereof?
Yeah, combination. It's mostly been like the Lorraine Community College. There's a newer restaurant in North Ridgeville called Bistro 83. It's been there for about 7 years or so. So that's what I say, newer. And so we try and reach out to non-member businesses, just to make them aware. On occasion, we'll have like a breakfast meeting at maybe like a local Panera or, coffee house, just to, have a presence of Rotarians together, just having coffee, enjoying each other company and just chatting and more of a social experience. And that's been a real positive experience for the club.
Thanks so much, Peter, for sharing. Who else has some ideas, some things that you can share with your peers of things that you plan on doing during your year as club president?
This is Mark Zakrajewski from the Burton Middlefield Club. And one of the things that we've kind of gotten in a rut of doing is we're a dinner club, and we've got a lot of members who've been with our club for decades, and it's become more of a social event than less active. And so what we're planning on doing is taking at least one or maybe two meetings per month and making them into either a Rotary on the road type thing, like you mentioned, Peter, or committee meetings, and trying to increase our activity as members rather than just attending as a social event. So that's one of the things I'm trying to really instill this next year. So.
Alexander here from Hillcrest Sunrise. One of the things I'd like to do is to sort of poll our membership and use that as fodder for a club assembly. So incorporating the earlier suggestion of the My Rotary moment, but also so that everyone feels like their voice is heard and, you know, where they would like to see the club going, and just sort of so that everybody knows that their opinion is valued and that we see if there's any kind of consensus within the club of, you know, where we go from here.
Okay. So basically getting that feedback to drive that direction. Because when people feel involved, they're going to be more committed. And
Right.
be more activity as far as when they buy in and they're a part of that process. Some other ideas.
This is Jacob Jackson. I was just going to share that one thing that Hudson Clock Tower does that I think works really well, and especially as people are looking at trying to get engagement from members that maybe have not been engaged for a while. We have lunch is our general meeting time, but one night a month we actually meet in the evening for a more social meeting. And it allows some of those members that maybe can't make it at lunch anymore or as frequently to then still be involved and still be engaged in things and participate. So just having a split time or, you know, one night a month that we do that allows for that flexibility.
And Jacob, as far as what has your attendance been like in comparison between those two? You know, between a normal meeting and an evening social.
Same number of people?
Yeah, people.
Yeah, we get about the same. I'm sorry?
So the same people, the same number of attendees?
Similar number, but different people.
Okay. So you're casting a wider swath and trying to get other people who might not otherwise be there. Okay.
Right.
We're hearing that this is my 10th year as being a Rotarian. John has many more years than myself.
25 or so.
So, and I've been a member of one club. I've been fortunate to attend other club meetings, and I highly encourage others to do so. If you've never attended another club meeting, you should definitely make that a priority just to see how they do things differently and what things you can incorporate. But we're hearing from a lot of clubs who are trying to change it up and go from the every week meeting to something different, whether that's on every fifth week, whether that's once a quarter, whether that's once a month. We are seeing more clubs do that. And some clubs might say, okay, we're going to try it, and that's not really our style. They may revert back, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with trying something and figuring out, okay, that door is closed behind us. Let's see what door is open in front of us. But think about as you know, again, a huge part of your role as club president is obviously to keep involved and retain current Rotarians, but another part of that is to basically also to recruit new Rotarians and see what they would respond to.
I notice that at least one club is advertising their speakers about a month ahead. If you're not multitasking, can you tell me why you're doing that and how that's going?
Yeah, that's me, Peter, from the North Ridgeville Club. Our current president, again, has really made extra efforts to try and reach out to everybody via email, very detailed emails as far as speaker schedules, any fundraising activities coming up, and just keeping everybody in the loop, engaging everybody. And our attendance has been very consistent. I think we're in that 75 to 80% this year, which is, you know, good for us. You know, we've got about 40 members. And so week in and week out, we meet Fridays for lunch. Week in and week out, we're hitting 75, 80%, which is a credit to our current president.
Great. We see some clubs that, as far as they will try and recruit big names as far as to be speakers, and they will publicize those to the community in efforts to, share the good works of Rotary and also possibly recruit. And some clubs do it at a much different level. But it's important to think about who is scheduling your speakers. I know some clubs, the person that does the speakers is basically the president-elect. They have to do that before they become club president. Others, it might be a committee. But who is doing that for your club, and how do you know it's successful? Again, as far as how do you know that it's working, as far as that it's helping to retain and to recruit new speakers. How do you get that information out there? Do you put it on Facebook? Do you basically put it on your club webpage? Do you put it on a piece of paper? Do the members even know who's going to be there? This is another thing that you can do. The Rotary Club of Hillcrest Sunrise, which is my club, is the East Side Suburb Club of Cleveland. The Cleveland Club, and I work downtown Cleveland, much larger club, different experience. I like their Facebook page, and I know as far as when they have their quarterly social, what speaker they have during the week, and if I want to go see something different, I at least know because it's in my Facebook feed. That's something a lot of clubs can consider doing if you're organized, you have those resources, but the speakers make a huge impact on the weekly meeting experience. Along with that, we've all seen that experience as far as where a speaker cancels, they have to reschedule, they no-show at the last moment. This is a very common experience, and you as the club president are sometimes like, okay, what do we do? What's the backup plan? And I highly encourage you to have several backup plans during your year. Hopefully it never comes to that point, but sometimes it does. And I've seen clubs go to a club assembly. They might do something fun like 2 truths and a lie, something to at least engage their membership. But what are you going to do when the speaker doesn't show for that assigned week? And again, I've seen different clubs do different things. What is your plan, and what are some things that you've seen be successful that you would share with your peers?
This is Roger Sidoti from Ken again. We've tried in the last 2 years to we've tied into key people. So, for instance, our superintendent of schools is a member of Rotary. He and the assistant superintendent are generally at either he or the assistant superintendent are generally at the meetings. If we were to have a cancellation or a speaker not showing up, he knows that he may be asked, hey, how would you like to give us a little bit overview of what's going on in our schools? So he becomes a key person. We have, I myself am a at-large Kent City councilman, and it's amazing how many times they want to have a shot at the councilman to come up and speak about what we're doing in the city or what some of the decisions that we're making and how they're going to impact the business community, the residents, et cetera, et cetera. We have a person that is very active in the Ministerial Association, who is there at every meeting as a Rotarian, and we may turn to that person, or we will go into a club, like you said, a club assembly type approach. But we usually found key people, and then before the beginning of the year, before the beginning of our Rotary year, we asked them, would you be willing to be a go-to person to, give us some feedback, and it's been quite successful. That's how we've been doing it in Kent.
Okay, excellent. So there's obviously some pre-planning in advance with that.
Yes.
Who else? You can't tell me that no one's ever had a speaker cancel or no-show. What else have you guys done at the club level?
Well, our club has a policy of if we do have canceled speakers, that we line up club members to give vocational speeches. I think we've done quite well at not having a gap and using it sort of, so that the replacement speaker isn't sort of a poor substitute, that whatever we have replacing a canceled speaker, and we don't really have that many of them, but that it is still an interesting meeting.
Sure. And that might be something that you have in your back pocket, or I don't know how many clubs actually plan member topics on a regular basis as far as where members are presenting either on something of personal interest or on their business, and whether or not members want to hear from that. But I know in my own club, which Alexander just spoke to, I find that most members enjoy hearing from their peers. They enjoy hearing about their business and just getting to know them at a deeper level.
It's also a potential chance for some of your new members to talk about themselves, introduce themselves as well.
So beyond speakers, as far as part of meeting management is the member recruitment and retention. So how does your club meeting impact your membership growth and whether or not people are just having fun? So part of that is, again, how do you know? But hopefully, we heard a lot about this on last week's webinar with a group of PEs, but do you have anything specific in place to orient new members? And anything specific in place to orient new members during club meetings? And what does that look like? But as far as, it's something that can help as far as at least be strategic in mind to recruit people, and also as far as to help them as far as retaining them. The object of Rotary is to encourage and foster the idea of service as a basis of worthy enterprise. In order to do service, you have to have an engaged and involved membership. And the assumption is the more members you have, the more funds you can raise, and the more service you can accomplish, therefore reinforcing the idea of attracting new members. It's a great cycle to be in. As Sean mentioned, as far as like hearing from new members, how do you develop members into future club leaders? How do you get them involved? Do you ask them to be on a committee? Do you ask them to take on a task or a project? Do you invite them to the district conference and the district leadership assembly coming up here in 2 months or less, month and a half?
Anybody talks to Beverly, make sure you mention that we mentioned the district conference, please.
But again, like, how do you develop them and how do you engage new members in the activities of the club? And while you're trying to get them involved in the club, are you also giving them the capacity to bring new ideas that the club can adopt and ways for them to make the Rotary experience uniquely their own? How do you keep those longer tenure Rotarians engaged? And one last question here on membership recruitment. As far as Jenny Stodds talked a lot about this at PETS 1, but have you ever had to address a challenging member to, basically for the health of the club? If so, how did you do that? Did you call him out in the meeting and say, John, that's inappropriate? And I can think of 2 Johns within listening distance right now. Or did you, pull him aside? Did you ask a more tenured Rotarian to address it? But this is something you may or may not face. It's important to at least think about how do you handle that. And so if anybody's had that experience, again, I think your peers would benefit from learning from one another.
Can you
There
clarify?
have been clubs who have had that problem. I'm sorry, somebody was about to speak. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just asking, could you clarify when you say challenging, are we talking about a member who's disruptive at the meetings? Or are we talking about something else completely? I'm just curious.
I'll really let you define that. It could be a member that's disruptive at the meetings, or they're disruptive as far as with the direction of the club, or maybe they're just saying politically incorrect things that are basically driving other members away.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
And by the way, that last one was a problem that the Athens Sunrise Club had, and it was incredibly destructive. They were losing virtually every female member they had. So you can kind of figure out the nature of the comments. So it is critical if you have that problem to address it, because the damage can be substantial. And by the way, you can reach out to the district level, and we can try to assist as well, particularly if your initial efforts don't work.
So does anybody have any of these challenges, or at least observe them, or even a good way as far as how to approach that, how they might do that? You might do that, I should say.
Ryan, this is Jacob Jackson. I was just going to share, I belong to other philanthropic clubs and things on top of Rotary. So I haven't had this experience in our Rotary group yet, but I have in some of the other organizations in which I belong. And one of the things that I think is most important to keep in mind is that always, praising in public, but reprimanding in private. And so when we've had that experience, it's always started with the conversation in a private setting after the meeting or after elsewhere. And that gives you the opportunity to really have an in-depth discussion without everything else going on.
Sure.
On top of that, I guess the other aspect that I would keep in mind, sorry, I'm getting a little feedback on my.
That usually means somebody has two mics open at once. So if you do mute one of them, it'll help.
Yeah, I don't have. I hear feedback on your end as well, so I don't know if something just happened to the connection or what's going on. But anyhow, back to the topic at hand. I think the next step then, after you've had that private conversation as a leader of the group, is if that behavior continues, if something doesn't change, addressing it through another member or another respected individual may help as well. And trying to, again, take it in a private setting in the beginning and just escalate up slowly rather than trying to, crash on somebody right away. And that's been kind of our approach in those other organizations.
Thank you, Jacob. I had to mute Terry briefly there because we were getting the feedback from Terry's microphone. But no,
okay.
As far as basically praising in public and then also addressing the situation afterwards. And sometimes, as far as, how much credibility you have and getting others involved in that conversation without making it seem like it's overwhelming can be useful and helpful as far as addressing challenging and difficult situations. So as we talked, membership recruitment and retention is a vital piece of the Rotary Experience and part of what you are tasked with doing throughout the year. So one of the things we want to at least show you is the Rotary Club Health Check. And like I said, there's a great survey. There's also, Terry, can you mute your own mic?
Yeah, I can mute.
Okay, thank you. I think that's where most of the feedback's coming from. But please join us as far as when you have something to share. So the Rotary Club Health Check is just one of those tools that basically RI puts out. Some of you might have seen this. I know we've spent a lot of time with this in the past as far as with club presidents at previous years, and we will continue to do so because it really is an amazing piece, and I'll highlight it. But this is one little video that RI has put together that kind of demonstrates, some of the ways that you can address membership and other things. And the music is just that, it's music. It's more the video, so it's about 2 minutes here. I will send out the Rotary Club Health Check as a resource. But it is a wonderful piece that you can use to address several parts of the club. So you can start with the club experience, and you can do this as a survey at an individual level as you're just starting to think through it, or you can use some of these questions at your leadership team or in your entire membership. But in addition to basically assessing, the club experience, it gives you the tools, in other words, how to address those things. And it gives you these are some of the resources that RI has put together. By all means, use whatever resources you can use, whether that's past club leaders, whether that's people at the district level, or whether it's a resource that RI has put together. But we want you to be successful. And these are some tools that you can at least take advantage of, assessing the club meeting, your service projects and socials. Again, questions that you can consider. There might be other questions that you want to raise or ask, but this is at least a tool that you can use to model, to help you assess, and also to create with an action plan as far as how to address those things. So we at least wanted to share that. It's another piece of the puzzle as you're preparing.
A quick comment. I received the chat box comment, Alex from Geneva, on the assistant governor question. I responded to that offline in an email, and I'd be happy to talk about that offline as well.
What's the comment, John?
That district governor has resigned.
Okay.
Assistant governor has resigned.
Okay, so there's one assistant governor missing out of the 11.
Right.
Okay. All right.
And that's beyond the scope of tonight's discussion, but it came up in a chat
But
box
traditionally,
comment.
the district is broken down into 11 areas, and an assistant governor might have anywhere from 3 to 6 clubs that they kind of go around and they help out. And some are more visible than others. It certainly changes by the individual and their capacity, but they might organize cluster meetings, they might attend your club meetings, they might help support service projects, socials, fundraisers, but they are a resource and more or less, part of the district governor there to help you. The district governor can't be there at 53, 54 clubs all the time.
Not all the time.
All right. So another part of meeting management is your meeting structures. And some of you already talked about this earlier as far as Rotary on the road. As far as we're seeing different things out there, as far as people doing different things to reinvigorate or try something new to engage a different set of members, whether they're current members who can't make it during the lunchtime period or evening, or maybe it's just something else. As you think about your meeting structure and if you're going to make any changes, and it may not be during your year, you might be putting the wheels into motion for future years. It's important to ask, if you do make changes, will this help you in recruiting new members? And as far as also along with that, will this impact your retention of current members? I know as far as personally, every time change comes along or the idea of change, some people, at least in my observations, kind of batten down the hatches and they're like, no change, this is bad. And that may be. So as far as it's important to at least think that through. Anybody considering any changes as far as that can help recruit members and also retain members? I know we've heard about the Rotary on the Road. Anybody else?
This is Rick from Cuyahoga Falls.
Good evening, Rick.
Yeah, certainly there is a group that does not want to see any change. But I have a question for the group dealing with meeting structure. When you do have a regular meeting, if your start time is listed as noon, I'm just wondering how many of the people who are attending this would actually have their meeting start at noon, or just have people arrive at noon. And what I'm seeing with my current club is we have a noon meeting, and at about 12:15, 12:20, we start with announcements and then happy finds and all kinds of other things, and the speaker gets anywhere between 5 and 25 minutes. So I'm just wondering what kind of experience other people are having with that.
Hey, Rick, do you have a meal as a part of your meeting?
Yes.
Are people served, or are they getting food before you start?
It's a buffet which they can pick up as they walk in the door, and they can walk in the door at 11:30 and get food.
Okay. So Rick's asked the question as far as, do you start at a set time, or how do you maximize and make most efficient as far as people's time?
We also have a noon meeting in the North Ridgeville Club. We ring the bell at 12:15. We get all of our club business out of the way by 12:35, and our guest speaker starts no later than 12:40. So consistently, they have 20 minutes. Sometimes they get 25.
So at North Ridgeville, you're very structured, very on time, if I understand correctly.
Correct. Yeah, we officially, open the doors at noon, ring the bell at 12:15. That's how we roll.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, this is Roger at Kent. We follow a very structured policy too. Lunch begins at 11:45. That's the earliest that they begin to serve. But our meeting, it really starts at noon, and we have we're pretty structured and pretty tight rule that we're going to be out of there by 1 o'clock. Even if we have to cut our speakers short a little bit because they decide to take their 20 minutes and make it into 30, we literally stop it at 1 o'clock. And our feeling is that by doing that, people have a high respect for the meeting because they know that we're going to get started just like North Ridgeville about 20 after. We're going to ring the bell probably quarter after the first bell. The second bell will be 20 after, and we're rolling with our business, and our speaker's going to be up there. The speaker's going to get at least 20 minutes, and we always have a responder. So we always leave a minute or two for someone in the audience to be the responder to the speaker, and then we're out of there at 1 o'clock. I think that's critical. I think too many times when you go to meetings and they say they're only going to be an hour long, and they actually stretch them and you're planned around them. I think it really helps with the camaraderie of our club because they know, and they will call a point of order if we go too long. They'll make sure that they're heard, and we seem to have a nice we get almost 100 per meeting, and I think they respect that we respect their time.
Thank you. Anybody else care to respond to Rick's question?
Yeah, this is Terry from Chesterland. We're a breakfast club, but we start at 7 in the morning. And normally the bell is rung right around 10 after to quarter after. But to the point of making sure the meetings end on time, for a while they weren't. And it's not good because people have to get to work and leave at least by 8 o'clock. So we really tightened that up a lot. And I think the membership really appreciated that it's over at 8. And then if they want to stay and socialize or talk about different issues, programs or anything like that, then that's up to them to be able to do that.
I think what you're hitting upon is that you're going to have different people who have different needs and wants as far as what they want out of it. All the meetings I've ever attended, usually half the group wants to be there because they generally enjoy the company of each other and they want to socialize and take part of that. The other half is like, let's get the business taken care of so I can get out of here and move on to the next thing. And as a club president, you will have to straddle that line frequently. As far as I think about our own club, we're a breakfast meeting. Generally, people start showing up before. The meeting starts around 7:30, maybe a few minutes after, and we're usually done by 8:15. But in my observation of 10 years, I see Rotarians who are coming in the door late because they're getting kids on the buses. They've got other commitments at home, and as far as they might show up at 7:45. And then conversely, I see some people, myself included this morning, I left a little bit early because I had to take my mom to a doctor's appointment. People are going to leave before, but as club president, it'll be important for you to at least gauge your club and figure out what's authentic to your style, but that's an important component to it. Rick, thanks for the question. So we're going to try and, we've only got about 20 minutes left here, and my plan is to get you guys out of here on time because your time is important. I want to respect that. So I'm going to roll through a few more slides here. You know, we've talked a little bit about meeting structures, and some of you are going to contemplate, some of you are going to play with different ideas. When you go to All Ohio Pets in Columbus, you're going to hear from other clubs, and you'll be grouped by size. So the larger clubs will be grouped together, the smaller clubs will be grouped together. And you're going to hear from Rotary clubs all throughout the state of Ohio from 5 different districts. But again, we're seeing clubs that are rotating regular meetings with service projects and socials. They're changing the meeting frequency, the meeting location. They're doing Rotary after hours or on the move. You know, they're traveling. All different combinations of different types of meeting structures. And what's important for you to know is that you have flexibility from RI to do what's best for you. You have the opportunity to do different things. There's a whole module on the Learning Center, and that'll be part of the information I send out, but it's going to talk a little bit about as far as like the different things that you can do, you know, as far as clubs. You can change the flexibility in format. You can change the membership types and attendance flexibility. You can probably try and charter a satellite club. If you haven't heard about it yet, I'm sure you will. Our district is starting an e-club, and that's just getting rolling right now. They're still developing, is my understanding. But that's another opportunity for some of our members to get engaged that maybe as far as the traditional club experience just doesn't meet their needs. Maybe their work, their family, their personal situations changed. That might be another opportunity to keep them in Rotary. You might lose them as a club member, but at least it's something that they might be able to engage otherwise. You have options. It's just really as far as what do you do with it. Resources. So I talked a lot about the Learning Center. I'm going to send you the PowerPoint after we complete the webinar, along with a few other handouts. But there's a lot of great courses on the Learning Center. I highly encourage you to take different courses that will help you grow. I also highly encourage you to recommend courses to some of your leadership teams. So in other words, there's a club secretary or a club treasurer, or maybe your membership chair. There's several modules that they can engage in that can help them develop a plan or give them some tools to be successful. These are just a few of the ones that I highlighted that I think as far as you might want to take a gander at and see how much time you have, because that is the great balance all of us face. But you know, as far as club presence basics, you know, is your club healthy? Membership, strategies for attracting new members. They're always adding new modules. They're really trying to build this out as far as additional resources, because this is something you can do at 9 o'clock at night if you're not already busy. As far as you don't have to attend it throughout the day. As far as, I was talking to a district leader and he's like, I need to do something on the avenues of service. I'm like, hey, I just saw a module on that. There's some resources out there. So I at least want to make you aware of that. In addition to that, if you attended PETS 1 in Akron, or even afterwards, you should have received a flash drive. And we've been doing this the last couple of years, but we like to put together online electronic resources, and these are some of those resources that were available on that flash drive. But again, more information that can help you and the other club leaders in your club succeed. So along with online, there should be a flash drive out there. If you haven't received one, I think, John?
There may be those of you who have taken office as a PE very recently, like John. Shoot me an email, because I have been trying to send out the PETS 1 materials, which consists of a notebook we generate within the district, a President's Leadership Manual that comes from RI, and some other things, and I will make sure they get delivered to you. So email me and tell me where you want me to mail it to.
All right, I will. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So the flash drive is a part of it. As John just indicated, email him. This is a part of the webinar. These are several individuals at the district level who will be more than willing to help you. We believe strongly in the power of Rotary. We want it to be successful. We want you to be successful. So this will come out to you, but these are several people from the DG chain, district governor elect, district governor nominee, district governor nominee designate, the lead committee. Talk to your assistant governor if you have one. Talk to your current club president, a past club president, someone that you trust, but there are resources out there. Take advantage.
A couple of quick additions. If you're working on membership issues, remember Jim McKee. He is the district membership chair and has a committee that helps him. Also, if you're having any kind of club runner problem, entering goals, whatever, Cheryl Warren is very, very helpful at that, and frankly will respond to your inquiries almost any time of the day or night.
So this is a copy of the attachments I'm going to send out post-webinar about the Rotary Club Health Check, the new edition of the Lead Your Club. I think the last one you received was 1619, but there is a new edition out. The Vibrant Club Worksheet, Strategic Planning, Member Satisfaction Survey, and then also this PowerPoint. So these are some resources you should get. I'd like to get it out this Thursday. The last piece I have to develop or finish is a evaluation, so I'm still working on that. I'll get that out as soon as possible, along with a recording for those who didn't attend.
The Lead Your Club President 2019-2022 you should have in hard copy form as well, because that is what we have. RI actually provides very little material these days in a written form, but they did provide that for every club this year. So if for any reason you didn't get that, let me know.
All right, as we are wrapping things up, thank you for attending. You're going to get more information. We're not going to stop. You have All Ohio Pets here in 2 weeks or a week and a half. You have the district conference and district leadership assembly. But we're going to open this up for questions for the next 10 minutes. What else can we help with? What else do you want to know from your peers?
This is Terry from Chesterland. I have a question for anyone that's on this. One of the things I notice is that we bring new members in, especially younger members, because we have a lot of older members in the Chesterland Club that are charter members even. It's hard to bring them in and get them really involved in a lot of the different things that we do with the club, because, and that's why I'm wondering, do most of you have membership committees for every area, or is it one person doing these things for the most part?
That's a critical question. I would be really interested in the answer to that.
So who has a membership chair? Who has a committee?
We have a membership chair and committee.
So do we.
What club is that?
We do too.
So when you say you have a committee, what clubs were that?
Hillcrest Sunrise.
Kent,
What about
North
Akron?
Ridgeville.
Is Akron still in the house?
Well, I'll speak for Akron. Akron historically has had a full committee that works on that.
So Terry, to answer your question, as far as, one of the things I would look at the club level, as far as, do you have a membership retention policy, as far as when you have someone join, what are the steps they go through to learn more about the club? Are they assigned a mentor? Are they assigned a committee? Or are they asked to join a committee? How do you kind of get them involved as far as just so they understand the culture, they're not overwhelmed, but they also feel a part of it?
And that's kind of why I asked the question, because we do have a membership committee and there's 4 people on it, 4 of the members. But outside of that, I wouldn't say we have any other committees, even though if you looked at the list of projects that we do, there's 24 of those, 24 a year that we do. But a lot of them seem to be just one person leading it and doing it and really not. I always thought that having committees for many of these projects would be more inclusive for members coming in, and I think that's a real problem for us.
Okay, that's like a lot of projects. Some that might be achievable, some that might be more of a challenge. I always ask the question: if you have, say, members tomorrow, as far as how does that project end? Because that knowledge went with that member, or is it able to continue?
It for the most part, it continues. But some of the projects are smaller, but they still need more than one person. It seems to me like rather than one person doing it and then saying, all right, who can help me with this, that we actually have people assigned to things so that at least they belong to something that is a regular project that we're working on and things like that. So maybe out of the, so these 24 items, some are big and some are small. But I think belonging to 1 or 2 of them, I'm looking at that to try to make more maybe assignments for people to put them on committees so that they're part of something.
Some clubs actually, as a part of their orientation process, talk with that new member about what they are interested in and what the club does, and see if you can mesh those two. Because if you got 24 different things, you've got sounds like a pretty wide scope of things, and that might help you decide where to assign them.
Do you generally have the same programs, the same year, so the same 24 structured things every year, or is it something new?
Most of them are pretty much structured every year. It goes anywhere from ringing the bell for the Salvation Army to our big fundraiser that we just had a couple weeks ago.
Putting a plan in place now to start for those things in the after your year begins is the best time to do it, and to start recruiting people into those things. And then as part of whatever your member orientation is, having an introduction to the projects that you generally participate in is what I would advise. So when you give them a packet of information and help them come along, letting them know, here are the different projects that we are involved in. If you want to learn more about a project, here's the time frame. Come and listen, learn, get as involved as you want, and leave it somewhat up to them, but give them the structure and the opportunities to do so.
I'd also like to emphasize that in the Kent Club, what we do is that if we sponsor people, that in sponsoring people, the sponsor is responsible. I think it's an unwritten rule, and maybe we need to clarify it a little bit each year. but the sponsor is responsible for introducing the person to the club on a regular basis. They usually come to lunch, sometimes 6-8 weeks in a row, or they get introduced publicly. The sponsor gets to know the person, begins to know what their likes are, begins to know where they may have some ideas of the types of things they want to do. So I think the sponsor plays a big role. You know, if you've had the opportunity to sponsor someone with Rotary, you have a chance to talk to them, and you also have a chance to find out what they want to get out of the club and what their interests are. So I think people who sponsor people are really critical for the long-term retention of those members. They form almost a bond. They form an idea of where they would best serve or where they would be happiest serving in terms of all the various activities we do. That just seems to work very well when it's done right.
Thanks, Jacob and Roger. Other questions in the last few minutes that we have here? Other questions for your peers or us?
Well, I'm going to fill the silence with a reference to All Ohio Pets. That's coming up in just a little over a week and a half, March 8th and March 9th. Right now, frankly, we have 30 presidents-elect registered for that, which means we have around 20 or so who are not. A few of you are on the line tonight. I would really appreciate it if it is at all possible for you to attend that. As Ryan alluded to earlier, that's a 5-district event. You will literally be involved with several hundred clubs with a tremendous amount of experience. I might add that the commissioning ceremony for presidents-elect will be led by the Rotary International President-elect, Mark Maloney, which should be an interesting and fun event as well. So if you can find a way to join us, that would be very much appreciated.
And I will say, as far as a past club president and being fortunate to present the last 2 years, it's probably one of the more inspirational Rotarian events that you will participate in. So as far as there's usually great speakers, you'll come away motivated and ready, well, maybe not ready, but getting ready for your year. So it's a great event. Other questions for the good of the cause? If not, your time is valuable. All Ohio Pets week and a half, and then following that, you have the district conference and district leadership assembly on April 12th through the 13th. That will be at the Cleveland Airport Marriott. There will be no Sunday session this year because it is Palm Sunday, but lots of great sessions on Friday and Saturday. The district leadership assembly is on Saturday morning, usually from around 8 to noon. We're still working on the plans for that, but that's a great opportunity to get your leadership team some training as far as before they begin their year. So there should be some program that will resonate with them and help them in their own development. So please promote that to your clubs. Unless there's any other questions, we greatly thank you for your participation. Expect an email from me as far as with handouts and evaluation. And have a great night, everyone.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you. Great job.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks,
Look forward to seeing all of you soon.